How did somebody you know ruin their life in one day? Part 2. 30-plus-year district-renowned high school band director retires from teaching. High-end retirement party with a good amount of past students and colleagues celebrating his career. Daughter just had her first child. He's seemingly a happy grandfather with a happy marriage and happy life. 1 year later, he gets caught talking to a 13-year-old girl who turned out to be law enforcement undercover. The next 20 years in federal prison. Edit: I had to go back to check the validity of the sentence. After all the comments, he got 10 years. Damage is all the same, though. Had a friend from high school who decided to opt out by jumping off the roof at his mom's house. He landed in such a way that he survived, but is now paralyzed from the chest down, as in, can't even breathe for himself, and fully reliant on home health aides, and his mom, whom he despised, and named as the reason he wanted out of life. It's fair that she was a full-blown heroin addict at this point, and was a shit show herself. Some kid in our senior year of high school pulled the fire alarm every day. He was getting away with it for a while. The school had town officials, and the chief of the fire department, and police, come in and talk about the dangers. The town would send trucks and be without them if there was another emergency. None of that worked. When they offered a reward, the kid's friends ratted him out. His family had to pay for all those calls. He was expelled from school, and didn't graduate. Guy I knew, married and with 2 kids. He'd been adopted as a baby, and reconnected with his biological family, including his 10-year-old sister, who he was excited to get to know. She came to visit him, planning to spend a few weeks with his family. Her first day there, he tried to molest her. She got away from him, ran to the bathroom and called 911. He lost his job, most of his friends, and, we thought at the time, his wife. She took him back when he got out of prison, though. My dad once saw a patient who was a seemingly normal, well-adjusted family man in his early 40s, with no major health issues, and in good physical shape. He was in town for a business trip, and had suddenly gone blind. Come to find out, while out with his colleagues, he had tried coke for the first time in his life. It was cut with a something that created a blockage in his optic nerve, and now he's blind forever. This caused him to lose his job. He had a wife and kids, and was the sole breadwinner. My cousin got back into drugs, after having his life together and doing well, for a long time. He started losing his shit. Apparently, he had some underlying schizophrenia, they think the drug use brought out. He took a rifle to a store parking lot and shot a guy, ran over his body, then had a police standoff. Said, he shot the president, or some crazy shit like that. Needless to say, he ruined his life, took another, and destroyed another family in the process. Me. I didn't believe my mom. She said she'd kick me out at 18, so I never bothered to get a part-time job to save money. My 18th birthday came around, and I said nope to her when she asked if I'd gotten a job or had living arrangements figured out. The next day, I came home from a friend's place to a laundry basket of clothing at the door. She drove me to a homeless shelter and never let me come back home. I'm going to go with, your mother ruined your life in a day, more than, you ruined your life in a day, there. You absolutely shouldn't have been kicked out like that. A kid I knew growing up and was friends with, was 16, and his friend who was 15, lured 2 other kids to a field, who were 13 and 16, cousins, where they shot them and dismembered them, over weed. Weren't found for 2 weeks, and only because the one kid showed another kid. Ruined many families and lives that day. This was a shock to our entire community. Neither one of the boys who killed them had prior criminal history, or any sort of issues anyone knew or picked up on. My ex from when I was 17, got in car accident from drunk driving and trying to street race, lost control on a corner and hit a tree. The impact instantly killed him, sending his head halfway through the windshield, and ejected his cousin out of the car, who lived. He was missing his pinky at the funeral, and the pictures of the car was gut-wrenching. Fast forward to present time, his uncle was arrested for murder, a few years back, of a 21-year-old girl he shot execution style, and left in a field. I stayed a summer with him, when I was with my ex, and it's crazy to think that I could have been in danger at any given time. Really great friend in high school, huffed glue in her bedroom one night and died. It was really weird, because no one knew she was doing inhalants, and she didn't fit the glue huffing stereotype. She was extremely social, and well-liked, Extremely smart, athletic, she was the head chair in band in her section, and really into jazz band, but at night, she'd huff effing glue. A co-worker of mine, who had a very successful management-level job, at a big corporation, paralyzed themselves from the waist down, after trying to climb up a rain pipe, on a drunken dare. They couldn't work for almost a year, returned in a very junior position, and were basically making minimum wage. Their life savings disappeared, in a couple of months, despite them being amazing at saving, and last I saw them, they were made redundant, when COVID hit. No idea what their situation is now. He didn't properly secure a ladder on a building site. He then fell off said ladder, and fractured 3 vertebrae. Lucky enough, not to be paralyzed, but he spent nearly 2 months in hospital, and then 3 months in a body cast, from his armpits to his hole. His missus took this opportunity, to leave him for a yuppie scumbag, taking his kids with her. He's been battling with depression, and chronic pain, for over a decade, since then. Had a friend in college. We were both training to be pilots. His dad owned an insurance company, and gave him the company's credit card, to pay for all his flight hours with. He got about 2 years in, he finished his first license. $30,000 to $50,000. Got a DUI halfway through, his second license. Pilot career down the drain. On top of that, his father's company, will be paying for it. Jim, a kid I went to high school with, gave a bunch of other kids a ride home, in his pickup truck. The other kids rode in the bed, as he drove each of them home. You can already see where this is going, I think. Anyway, Jim tried to make a light, but he came up way short. Traffic on the opposite side already hit a green light. Jim's truck hit a car in the middle of the intersection, sending the kids, riding in the back, flying through the air. 2 of the kids died from their injuries, while one of the other ones got helicoptered to the ICU. Making matters worse, the car he hit was driven by Erin, a girl we went to high school with. All she did was proceed through the intersection when the light turned green. Like, literally nobody blamed her at all. But she was only 16, and had just started driving. But she never signed up to be involved in a crash, where people effing died. The incident sent her over the edge. She had a nervous breakdown, and I never saw her again. Life wasn't easy for Jim after that. The other students in school were merciless to him. He obviously felt horrible about what happened. But self-flagellation was apparently not enough for the other students. Eventually, Jim had to leave the school, because his safety was legit in danger. Jim's situation might have been exacerbated by some very forgiving parents of the deceased teens. One of them said words to the effect of, "He's already suffering, and he'll suffer even more in the future. I can't bring myself to add to his pain." I don't think the other kids took kindly to the parents just letting it go. But I can't prove that. I have no idea what Erin or Jim are up to these days. But I hope they're both better. DR there's no such thing as driving too safe. The life you save could be a teenager who can't cope with the trauma. Guy from my high school got drunk and stoned, and swerved off the road, driving his car into an 8-year-old girl, killing her. She was leaving a pajama party, walking in someone's front yard, while holding hands with her mom. The mom lived. The guy got like 5 years house arrest or something, which is such bullshit. So, he's free now, but his reputation and name are forever ruined. Edited to add, witnesses at the scene said, he first tried to run away, and was stopped. Then called his mom and said, "I just ruined my life." Just why are vehicle-related crimes taken so lightly? Why do so many get away with drink driving? Why are penalties so soft? Why do people's lives become insignificant compared to a vehicle? Owning a car is a privilege, not a right. If you F up, you should lose that privilege, and suffer from using public transport instead. Or if you kill someone, you should get the non-vehicular equivalent sentence of the crime. It shouldn't be controversial. Went to college with a dude, went to a party, caught him with something in his hand, and offering to bartend, so the host could mingle. I asked him what was up. He mentioned really wanting to hook up with a girl in his class, but she was engaged. I told him to let that crap go, and go jack off or something, instead of making an absolutely beyond stupid decision. Told the girl, she told me, I was an ugly fat freshman. True, I was overweight, but I was trying to warn her not be her best buddy, and to leave her alone. She dumped her drink on me, and I left the party. He roofied her for like 3 days straight, and R her several times. He didn't wear a condom, she got pregnant, her fiancé called off the marriage, and said, that was one of his friends, who he had known his whole life, the son of his pastor, and she was just a whore. KY, she couldn't get an abortion without money or ride, and went to her parents. Both evangelicals. One shotgun wedding to her heiress later, and she gave birth to her son. Her son went to live with the grandparents, due to bruises and other abuse. Her husband/R had her checked into Stoner Creek, local psychiatric facility, due to ideation. She killed herself on the first day out. Her heiress is now dating her younger sister, despite being nearly 12 years her senior, and everyone at my old church comments about how it was such a shame she couldn't get her shit together and be happy to have a family, but thank goodness her sister has more sense. Younger sister has basically adopted her nephew as her own son. Everyone pretends the R was all the older sister's fault. I don't go to church anymore, and the campus police wouldn't believe me. Receiving rude comments, I am a woman, thanks. I was a quiet, nerdy 19-year-old, at her very first party. Don't worry, the guilt still haunts me to this day, thanks. I only went to the party with him because he could drive, and I didn't have a car. Didn't want to walk in heels. I know details, because it was on her Facebook, and her friends got my Snapchat, and sent me a lot of hate telling me it was all my fault. And our pastor told us she had strayed from God and we had to pray for her. She was always with her friends, I figured they would look out for her. She was older than me and had friends, and didn't want to listen to a nerd with bad makeup and a Star Trek dress, okay? I still wish every day I had done better, or just stabbed the guy or something, but I was scared. He was a lot bigger than me. I reported it the next morning, but they figured I was jealous of her, or him, or whatever, and was just trying to stir up trouble. Old co-worker went to Vegas, felt really good about his odds, due to the liquor, and ended up betting his entire life savings on roulette, and lost. He ended up losing his house, his wife, kids, and from what I've seen, he lives in a tiny apartment, and works a minimum wage job. My uncle had a girlfriend who wanted coke. He had this amazing Camaro, he had been rebuilding for years. Literally my entire childhood, I remember him working on this canary yellow Camaro. His girlfriend wanted coke. He sold this car for $10K, to get it for her. Once the money/coke was gone, so was she. But he was addicted. He died alone in his apartment, a few years later. He was 52. F.U., Damara. My stepbrother got married at 18. He was a nice guy, but had a quick temper, and drank too much. About 2 years into the marriage, he and his wife got into an argument, while he was drunk. He hopped on his motorcycle without his helmet, and took off. He took out 4 mailboxes on 4x4 posts, suffered a severely broken arm, and now has the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. Years later, his brother, who was supposed to take care of him, went through his bank account. Pushed his girlfriend down a flight of stairs, in front of almost everyone he knew, seconds after she announced to everyone that she was pregnant with his kid. I ain't sure if she miscarried, or if she just decided not to have that psycho's kid, but he spent a few years in prison over it, and he ain't welcome anywhere, no more. She walks with a cane, at 30. Had a friend, who was a compulsive spender. Buy a $9,000 sports motorcycle. Spend $1,200, getting it customized. Traded in 9 months later, for $3,000, towards another new one. Guy could probably have a house, and be ahead on mortgage, with all of the money he's spent on stuff he was stupid about. Well, one day, he must have put his credit card number into a hot singles in your area scam. Woke up, and his bank account had been cleaned out. Needed to move back into his parents' house, and declare bankruptcy. Also, borrowed $1,000 from me, that I never saw a cent of, before he ghosted me. Sad thing about the situation is, even though I did want the money back, I had no intention of disowning his friendship. I worked for a company that had a very prestigious grad program. Getting in and completing it was a fast track to senior management, either in our firm, or any other in our industry. We treated them very well, and had a social event for the new intake. One of the grads, one of the other grads. She decided not to take it to the police, even though we encouraged her to, and offered her all the support she needed, to deal with it. Needless to say, he was immediately fired, and blackballed from the entire industry. One of the senior managers, who recruited the guy, took his mistake very personally, and has been following his career closely, via LinkedIn. Every time he gets a half-decent job, a discreet phone call is made, and he fails his probation. I was at a casino down in Atlantic City, because we were staying by the shore nearby, and said, why not? I played and won $60, and chickened out from playing anymore. This old man is in front of the cashier/cash out area, and the lady behind the glass told him his bank account was empty. Showed up to work with a few ounces of heroin in his bag, and security picked him for a random bag check. He was originally charged with trafficking, and pled down to simple possession. I think he might get out of prison in a couple of more years. Lost a good paying job, his wife divorced him, and he's barred from seeing his children once he gets out, because of the drug charges. Heroin in the girls' bathroom. She was an honor student, and had been accepted to several colleges, including her dream school. Cute geek, who liked Star Wars, and competing in Science League. Now, she has a criminal record, 2 kids, and custody of only one of them, and can't keep a job. Been in and out of rehab 3 or 4 times now. All because of the 20 or so seconds it took to shoot up with a friend during lunch. What people often forget is that heroin, or any opioid, is a painkiller, and painkillers work on emotional pain, too. Something led her to doing a shot at school. Injecting is not easy, and it's almost never the first route of ingestion. She may have been smoking it for some time, and even taking pills before that. Either way, she was dealing with some kind of very serious pain. Something led her to being unable to stay off it. People with access to therapy, strong familial support, health insurance, community, and goals stand a much better chance at staying off drugs. At least before fentanyl that was the case. When people don't have that supportive environment to go home to, rehab doesn't work that well. It's like getting back surgery, then going back to the back snapping factory. Poor kid. Poor woman. This dude, who was blacklisted from working at a lot of local businesses, threw a chair at the assistant manager. The head manager tried to play it off with HR to save him. It was a buddy of his, but HR didn't listen. He was told to leave the property that day. Usually they have to provide notice before letting people go, unless under extreme circumstances, and he was banned from the store for 6 months. He ended up moving because no one would hire him. I'm in the USAF, and my current counterpart, of the same rank, was about to get promoted to Master Sergeant, E7, but he went through the base gate and blew a hot breathalyzer. He lost his rank and get demoted down to his old position. This happened like 2 months ago. My uncle basically ruined his life by banging a co-worker. He was a security guard and got caught banging a nurse at work. He lost his job and got blacklisted or something because no one else would hire him. Now he's eating tramadol every day in a basic apartment with a dump vehicle. It's sad because he's a good guy, actually. Had a choir teacher at my middle school who was accused of inappropriate behavior with a student. Before charges were even made, he took his life that evening after he left school. I remember them playing the dispatch call of himself telling the police where they'll find his body. I had a classmate who tried to OD to end his life. He survived. He was in a coma for like a year, then when he woke up, he couldn't talk or even remember who he was. He's getting better slowly, but he's now mentally disabled. Just so brutal. He's only 22. I know the brain is an amazing thing, so hopefully, he'll get to some sort of normal, eventually, but he's never going to be the same. Not as serious as some of these stories, but I worked with a guy that was using his shift manager/key holder status to steal money and make it look like new hires did it. I had caught on to him and approached the owner when the owner was contemplating firing yet another new hire, convincing him to hold off and until after this dude's next shift. The owner turned the cameras to face the desk area where the drawer was counted, which also showed the safe. Prior to this, he used the cameras to make sure we were safe. He was a good boss. Before his next shift though, he shows up really early during one of my shifts, just for a glass of water, and disappears to the back for a second, before leaving without another word. I call up our boss, he checks the cameras, sure enough, he went into the safe. Boss says, "Don't touch anything, I will be there before your shift is over, with a locksmith." An hour or two later, some cops show up, looking for this guy, because they found his wallet in a building that had been broken into and vandalized the night before. Our boss shows up then, and they have a long discussion. I find out later, it was in elementary school. He had taken pretty much all the money out of the safe, and had also wrecked his frat brother's car. These cops were basically on a crime spree scavenger hunt at this point. He got kicked out of the frat, lost his scholarships, and had to drop out. We'll ask my sister. She got arrested for embezzlement and computer fraud in the same day. Then 12 days later, got arrested for domestic violence in another county. She did a really good job of ruining her life, because she confessed immediately to the embezzlement. She's not very bright, I swear. The crimes were bad enough, but confessing gives no leverage to plea bargain. Invoke your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, request a lawyer, don't just confess. Then to be out on bail and commit yet another crime. I just can't with her. Before my time, an employee at an old job went to a job interview somewhere else, radically misinterpreted it, drove straight back to his office, went full Jerry Maguire, stormed out, called up the hiring manager at the other company saying he could start right away. The hiring manager said a mistake had been made in interviewing him, as a candidate had already been given an offer letter the day before, and so the opening had been filled. He tried begging for his old job back, but he got laughed out. A coworker told me that this guy's marriage was already on the ropes. But when his wife found out he rage quit, without having something new lined up, she moved out the same day, and filed for divorce 2 or 3 months later. My high school classmate's brother was driving, and he had friends in the bed of his truck. His truck rolled, killing one girl. The town wanted to kill him after she died, including her father, and my little brother, who I didn't know at the time, was very much in love with her. The brother was charged with negligent manslaughter, but because he was a minor, he had to serve jail time until he was 18. Also, had to take mandatory therapy, AA, and so on. I don't know where he is now, but he was so horrified and upset. One of my childhood bullies joined the military immediately after graduation. Soon after that, he got drunk and dove into shallow waters. He broke his back, and is now permanently paralyzed, as well as completely unable to do his dream job. He was always a miserable piece of shit, who always picked on people he deemed less than him, including disabled people. Karma is a raging bitch.